Hey guys, tonight we embark on what might just be the sleepiest saga in history, a gentle tumble through the ages on the not-so-glamorous topic of toilets. Imagine, you blink awake in a chilly Neolithic dawn, bundled up in animal pelts, and realize that nature is calling. No cozy bathroom, no heated seat, not even the humble wooden outhouse in sight, just a wide, stony landscape and a primal urge that unites all humanity, regardless of era or fashion. You step outside your hut. Well, it's really more of a glorified mud dome, with a hole in the roof for the smoke to escape and a layer of animal bones piled up for insulation. The grass is slick with dew, and the sky is a sleepy shade of gray. The first rays of sun sneak over the horizon, and as you trudge to the edge of the communal clearing, you're greeted by the oldest bathroom technology known to humankind, a pit in the ground. Revolutionary, right? You shuffle through tall grass, eyes squinting, careful not to step on anything unexpected, left behind by last night's dinner guests. The air is brisk, and there's a faint earthy scent, part wildflowers, part, well, human. Your tribe's latrine is nothing more than a carefully dug hole, surrounded by some conveniently placed stones to help with your balance. If you're lucky, a thoughtful ancestor lined the edge with moss, so you won't have to relive the chilly surprise of a bare bottom on cold rock. Historians still argue whether those Neolithic mosses were ever replaced, or if families developed legendary resistance to discomfort over the years. You squat down, knees complaining, and stare at the morning fog rolling through the valley. This is privacy, circa 10,000 BC, the gentle rustle of wind, a few nosy birds, and the ever-present risk that someone from the next hut over might wander by. No doors, no locks, just the great outdoors and a burning hope that the village dog doesn't come sniffing at the worst possible moment. If you're lucky, your tribe is forward-thinking enough to rotate the pit every so often, leaving the old ones to nature and moving on to greener, and less fragrant, pastures. Archaeologists are actually thrilled when they find these ancient waste pits, picking through the remains to reconstruct what our ancestors ate, how they lived, and what they left behind. Talk about a dirty job. Sometimes you wonder if the modern fascination with ancient diets is just a polite way of saying, "We've been rooting through your ancestors' garbage." The pit itself is basic, but don't let that fool you. It's still a technological leap. Before people started digging communal holes, everything just, well, happened wherever. This was a huge step up for hygiene, not to mention community spirit. There's something oddly bonding about sharing the same pit with your entire extended family, isn't there? Imagine the group chats if Neolithic people had WhatsApp. "Hey, who didn't refill the moss basket? That's the third time this week." A passing wild boar snuffles at a distance, perhaps pondering the mysteries of human behavior. The sun creeps higher, painting the sky in soft golds and pinks. You finish up, toss a handful of dirt over your contribution. Some things never change, and take a moment to appreciate the sheer simplicity of it all. No plumbing, no fancy seat warmers, just you, the earth, and a whole lot of humility. There's a sleepy kind of satisfaction to it, the knowledge that, even 12,000 years ago, people were already engineering little comforts in their lives. Sure, your modern self might shudder at the idea, but the Neolithic pit stop was progress, plain and simple. And as you trudge back toward the camp, maybe you give a silent nod to your distant ancestors, innovators of the humble hole. Historians still debate just how common these communal pits were, or whether some clever tribe somewhere invented the world's first toilet paper from leaves and bark. For now, you're just grateful for a few moments of peace before breakfast, a chance to listen to the wind and watch the smoke drift from a dozen sleepy huts. So, next time you flush, take a sleepy moment to thank the inventors of the original pit stop. They paved the way for everything to come, one humble scoop of earth at a time. You're now a few thousand years further along the stream of history, where the banks of the Nile shimmer gold beneath the ancient Egyptian sun. It's early morning, and as you blink awake in a house of cool mud brick, you hear the faint splashing of water outside. A household servant is already drawing water for the day's rituals. You stretch, gaze at your hand-painted walls, and yes, that urge is back again. Time to seek out Egypt's answer to, "Where does the king go?" You slip on a linen tunic, shuffle past sleepy relatives, and step into the courtyard, where the scent of lotus and papyrus wafts on the breeze. In the shadow of the pyramids, privacy is both a privilege and a sign of status. For most, the call of nature is answered in a simple pit, dug in the corner of a walled garden or just outside the home, discreetly screened by a reed fence. But you, tonight's honored guest, are granted the rare experience of royal relief. You're ushered into a private room, well, as private as things ever get in ancient Egypt, where you're greeted by the star of the show, a beautifully crafted chamber pot, its golden rim gleaming in the sunlight, adorned with painted lotuses and perhaps the odd hieroglyphs spelling out good luck. If you're truly among the elite, your seat might even be carved from alabaster, smooth and cool under your thighs, a far cry from the Neolithic pit. You settle in, take a breath, and hope no one's left an unexpected surprise from the last shift. As you perform your royal duties, a servant stands nearby, respectfully averting his gaze and quietly humming a hymn to Thoth, the god of wisdom, because apparently, wisdom is always welcome in these moments. Historians still debate whether the Egyptians considered toilet attendance an honor or a curse. Evidence suggests some saw it as a necessary task, while others, well, let's just say they probably drew straws. Once you've finished, your loyal attendant removes the chamber pot with the kind of delicacy reserved for priceless relics. Or, in this case, very personal artifacts. The contents will soon be discreetly emptied into a specially dug pit outside the city, or along the edge of the river, where ancient sanitation teams labor to keep the streets, mostly, clean. Some days you wonder if the real reason for the elaborate rituals wasn't cleanliness, but a clever way to keep servants on their toes. The Egyptians, ever resourceful, sometimes used ashes, sand, or even natron, a salty mineral, to deodorize and dry the chamber pots. The smell, well, it's probably best described as earthy with a hint of mystery. If you're lucky, you might even have a small basket of aromatic petals to sprinkle on top, a primitive air freshener that's surprisingly effective. For the average person, there's no golden seat, just a simple clay pot or, in rural homes, a pit dug by hand, used by the whole family and occasionally visited by curious cats. Children are often sent to empty the pot, and there are likely more than a few whispered complaints about the task, passed down from generation to generation. But the pharaohs, the pharaohs. Their tombs contain elaborate depictions of life, but almost never a mention of these most private moments. Historians still argue about whether Ramses II had his own personal restroom in the temple, or if he, like everyone else, had to make do with the closest chamber pot. The artifacts say one thing, the poetry another, and the silence of the tombs, well, it speaks volumes. You rise, adjust your tunic, and step out into the blinding Egyptian sun, knowing you've experienced a luxury most could only dream of, relief with a view. Servants bow, cats stretch lazily, and life along the Nile flows on. As you stroll back to breakfast, fresh bread, figs, maybe a honey cake, you catch sight of a neighbor making his way to the garden fence with a clay pot tucked under his arm. You both nod knowingly. Some things, you realize, never really change. Fast forward several centuries and the landscape shifts. Gone are the palm-lined courtyards of Egypt. Instead, you now wake in the shadow of ziggurats, right at the bustling heart of ancient Mesopotamia. The city of Ur is already alive, traders shouting, livestock bleating, children dashing through mud brick alleys. You blink the dust from your eyes and feel the familiar tug of your morning routine. History waits for no one, least of all your bladder. Unlike the wide-open pit stops of the Neolithic or even Egypt's posh chamber pots, here in Mesopotamia things are getting, dare we say, innovative. Your home, a snug rectangle of baked clay, actually has a designated toilet room. It's not glamorous, but it's real. You pad across the chilly floor to a small, sunken compartment in the back corner, a basic clay seat above a vertical shaft, its sides blackened from centuries of use and occasional fire. The Mesopotamians are famous for inventing riding the wheel, and, as it turns out, some of the earliest plumbing. Down below, the pit isn't just for you, it's part of a system, a primitive sewer channel that carries, well, everything, toward the city's outer walls and, if luck is on your side, into the fast-flowing Euphrates. Historians still debate whether these systems ever worked as intended or just made things, well, smellier in different places. Either way, they were centuries ahead of their time. You lower yourself onto the cool clay seat, which is more comfortable than a rock but not exactly spa-worthy. The air is thick with the aroma of old brick, dust, and whatever the neighbors had for dinner last night. The walls are decorated with faded frescoes, geometric patterns, flowers, the occasional stern-faced god. Maybe you silently ask for forgiveness, just in case there's a deity in charge of restrooms. A sliver of morning sunlight sneaks through the tiny window high on the wall, illuminating the inside of the shaft. You can't help but notice an odd, half-buried clay pipe running beneath your feet. Archaeologists love these pipes. Broken bits are scattered all over the region, evidence of ancient engineers desperately trying to separate clean from unclean. Sometimes it worked, sometimes not. But the effort counts, right? After doing your business, you sprinkle a handful of ashes over the opening. Household wisdom says it keeps down the smell and discourages curious rats. Your mother insists the tradition dates back to Sumerian times. Your father just grumbles and says it's better than nothing. Now, there's a little trick with the water. If you're lucky enough to be in a house with access to a nearby well, someone, usually the youngest child, hauls a bucket inside and gives the shaft a ceremonial rinse. If not, you just hope the next big rainstorm flushes the pipes on your behalf. Out in the city, the public toilets are even more adventurous. Large shared outhouses built along the main streets let entire neighborhoods socialize as they take care of business. Just imagine the morning gossip. It's said that some people visited the public toilet just for the news, staying far longer than necessary, much to the annoyance of the queue outside. Historians still argue whether this social aspect was a sign of advanced civilization or just a side effect of a lack of doors. You emerge into the warmth of the day, passing a neighbor heading in with a clay bowl of fresh ashes. She winks, and you know she's about to do a thorough family flush. The city bustles on. Scribes head to their schools, bakers stoke their fires, and you're quietly grateful that, for a few precious moments, you had a seat to yourself and a little bit of indoor privacy, something even kings couldn't always count on. As you stroll through Yar's alleys, the subtle network of pipes and channels burbles beneath your feet. It's messy, yes, but it's the future, a future built, quite literally, on clay and necessity. You shake your head, imagining what archaeologists will think as they sift through all this centuries later, piecing together stories one broken pipe at a time. You blink, and the sun rises now over olive groves and marble columns. You've traveled to ancient Greece, the birthplace of democracy, philosophy, and, as you're about to find out, some of the most communal toilet experiences in history. Athens wakes slowly, golden lights sliding over the rooftops and flickering through bustling agoras. The first cool breezes of dawn rustle your linen chiton as you slip on sandals and make your way to the city's public baths. No personal chamber pots for you. Today, it's time for the Greek communal throne. You step into a modest stone building filled with the sounds of trickling water and gentle conversation. At the back, long marble benches line the walls, each with a series of evenly spaced holes. No doors, no dividers, just an open invitation to chat and sit a while. It's a sight to behold. Citizens, philosophers, poets, even athletes, all lined up, discussing last night's banquet, tomorrow's wrestling match, or the latest twist in the Peloponnesian War. You hesitate. Modern instincts balk at this arrangement, but here, it's the norm. You settle onto the cool marble, trying to maintain dignity. The bench is surprisingly comfortable, and beneath it, a gently flowing stream of water, primitive plumbing at work, carries everything away. A small, round sponge on a stick, known as a xylospongium, rests in a jar of vinegar nearby, ready to be used and returned to its spot for the next guest. Historians still argue whether these shared sponges were a breakthrough in hygiene or the fastest way to start a citywide stomach bug. Conversation drifts up and down the bench. Someone cracks a joke about the philosopher's stone, and laughter ripples around the room. You try to join in, but let's be honest, it's tough to focus on wordplay with so many distractions. Still, there's a strange camaraderie. Strangers become friends here, united by necessity and the shared hope that today, the water will keep flowing and the sponges will stay, mostly clean. At home, the arrangement is more modest. Simple clay pots or a small, hand-dug pit in the courtyard suffice for daily needs. Children are sent out each morning to bury the evidence, and old women trade secrets for keeping things discreet: herbs, ashes, and if you're lucky, a sprig of fresh thyme to wave away the smell. The city's wealthiest citizens invest in private toilets with decorative mosaics and scented oils, but even they can't escape the realities of ancient plumbing. Every so often, the sewers back up, flooding the lower neighborhoods and sending families scurrying for higher ground. Historians still debate whether the famed Athenian drains were a marvel of engineering or just another way to spread gossip and germs. Back at the bathhouse, you finish up, dip your sponge, and set it back in the vinegar jar with a silent prayer. You catch the eye of a fellow visitor, who raises an eyebrow and grins. "A good day for clean water, yes?" You nod, appreciating the little victories. Outside, the sun is higher, and the city bustles with life. You step out, lighter in both spirit and body, and join the crowd headed to the agora for breakfast: fresh bread, olives, maybe a little honey if the market's been generous. You glance back at the bathhouse, grateful for the marble bench, the running water, and even the humble xylospongium. It's a far cry from the Neolithic pit, and a gentle reminder that, sometimes, progress is measured in very small steps. As the day unfolds, you realize that in Athens, there's no such thing as true privacy. But here, at least, you're in good company. Now you're perched on the edge of another empire, Rome. You wake to the scent of warm bread and roasting olives, sunlight streaming through your villa's atrium. The city outside is alive, wheels clattering over cobblestones, merchants barking their morning wares, the distant echo of a gladiator's trumpet. Rome is obsessed with order, infrastructure, and above all, plumbing. This is where the toilet evolves from humble pit to an urban phenomenon, complete with heated floors and spirited debate. You pad down a marble corridor to the family latrine, a row of smooth stone seats, each with its own neatly chiseled opening, arranged above a wide drainage channel. Water from the street's public aqueduct trickles constantly underneath, whisking away last night's pasta, wine, and other remains. The air is surprisingly fresh, well, as fresh as a communal restroom can be in 1st century AD. The faint sound of rushing water competes with the lively chatter of your relatives and household slaves. Privacy? Please. The Romans view their bathroom as an extension of the dining room, another space for business deals, rumors, and philosophy. You claim your spot, feet planted on the slightly warm floor, thanks to Roman underfloor heating, hypo-cost technology at its best. On a shelf nearby sits a collection of communal sponges, each on a long stick, soaking in a bucket of vinegar. You try not to think too hard about how many people have used them today, or whether anyone actually called dibs on a favorite. Historians still argue whether these communal cleaning sponges were changed often, or if a lingering flavor was just a fact of Roman life. Your cousin slides onto the seat next to you and launches into a story about last night's chariot races. Across the room, a pair of senators are deep in discussion, voices echoing off the stone walls. Someone makes a bawdy joke about the emperor's diet and the troubles it must cause. The laughter ripples around the room, punctuated by the gentle splash of water below. Occasionally, the city's engineers can be seen checking the drains. Roman sewers, the Cloaca Maxima, are legendary, vast tunnels running beneath the streets, directing waste away from homes and baths toward the Tiber River. The whole system is so efficient that, according to some, Rome doesn't smell quite as bad as it ought to. Historians still debate whether this was true, or if Romans simply developed a strong tolerance, and perhaps an affection, for the unique aroma of urban life. You take a moment to appreciate the luxuries: the smooth stone seat, the heated floor, the reliable trickle of water. But as you look up at the frescoes depicting mythological tales, Hercules battling monsters, Venus rising from the sea, you wonder if any artist ever tried to immortalize the humble toilet scene. After all, if every facet of Roman life is celebrated in art, why not this? Done with your business, you hand your cousin the vinegar-soaked sponge, exchange a few final words, and step out into the bustling street. The day is just beginning, and the city's network of public baths and toilets hums with the energy of a million stories, some told, some only imagined. As you walk away, the morning sun glints off the tiled rooftops and you realize that, for all their engineering genius, the Romans never quite solved the issue of true privacy. But in their world, maybe that was part of the fun. You're whisked further east, to a land of silk, scholars, and ceramics, ancient China, where the quest for comfort and cleanliness gives rise to innovations few outsiders could imagine. The dawn light sifts through bamboo groves, casting dappled shadows across your tiled courtyard. As you shuffle through the house in cotton slippers, you catch the faint aroma of jasmine tea mingling with the distant sound of street vendors. But today, your mind is fixed on the business of the day, nature's business. You enter a room at the back of the house, where a low wooden platform holds a beautifully painted porcelain vessel. Unlike the stone and clay of previous ages, this chamber pot is a work of art, white, glossy, adorned with blue dragons swirling among clouds. It's cool to the touch, smooth as silk, and feels oddly luxurious beneath you. Centuries ahead of their time, the Chinese have mastered the secret of fine porcelain, and even the most utilitarian objects are imbued with a sense of beauty. As you settle in, you reach for a nearby box. Inside are slender bamboo sticks, each carved smooth at the tip. These are the cho, ancient China's answer to toilet paper. You use one to gently clean yourself, then drop it in a small jar of water. The next person will wash and reuse it, frugal, if not entirely appealing to modern sensibilities. Historians still debate how common these bamboo sticks were outside the wealthiest circles, or whether most folks simply relied on leaves, water, or whatever else nature provided. After your morning ritual, you pour a ladleful of water into the vessel, swishing it clean. In some households, an ingenious system of clay pipes connects the pot to an outdoor cesspit, whisking waste away with a simple bucket of water, a precursor to the flush toilet, centuries before the West even dreamed of such things. But it's not all porcelain and poetry. In crowded cities, public latrines, often little more than covered trenches, line the alleyways. Here, the night soil collectors make their rounds, emptying chamber pots into massive carts. Their cargo is destined for the countryside, where it will fertilize the rice paddies and vegetable gardens that feed the empire. Talk about recycling. The job is lowly, but vital, and sometimes the collectors are even granted tax exemptions for their noble, if fragrant, service. Back at home, your grandmother lights a stick of incense to mask any lingering odors. The sweet smoke curls upward, blending with the morning breeze. You listen to the soft click of mahjong tiles in the next room, and the distant clang of a street peddler's bell. Of course, China is also credited with inventing paper, and by the 6th century AD, some of the elite are using soft sheets for their most private needs. A Tang Dynasty poet once wrote that paper should not be inscribed with the names of sages. A gentle reminder to keep Confucius' wisdom out of the lavatory. Historians still argue about the spread of toilet paper beyond imperial palaces, and whether peasants ever enjoyed such luxury. You wash your hands in a basin of cool water, dry them on a crisp linen cloth, and breathe in the fragrance of peony blossoms on the windowsill. There's something serene about this moment, a blend of beauty, practicality, and respect for both body and earth. Outside, the city is waking up. You slip on your sandals and join the stream of people flowing toward the market, your mind at ease, your conscience clear. Centuries from now, people will marvel at the ingenuity of ancient China, not just for their inventions, but for the quiet dignity they brought to even the most ordinary routines. As time blinks forward, stone walls give way to soaring keeps and moats glistening beneath the morning fog. You're now an early guest in a medieval European castle, somewhere in England or France, where royalty and rats alike are learning to live with their castle garderobes. The sun hasn't crusted the battlements yet, and a heavy silence hangs over the halls, broken only by the distant clang of armor and the occasional shriek of a sleepy goose. You wake beneath a scratchy woolen blanket, tug on rough hose, and tiptoe past snoring squires to the narrow, winding staircase at the edge of your chamber. There's no need to ask where the toilet is, it's that small door set awkwardly into the outer wall, a place known as the garderobe. You slide the latch and squeeze inside, bracing yourself against the icy stone. There's no window, just a narrow slit letting in a draft so brisk it would wake the dead. Your breath curls in the chilly air as you perch on a wooden board with a round hole, bravely confronting the ancient enemy, medieval plumbing. Below you, a vertical shaft drops straight down, out over the castle wall, or, if you're unlucky, into the moat far below. Garderobes were the marvels of their time, but, as you quickly learn, out of sight does not mean out of smell. If the wind's blowing right, or wrong, a pungent reminder of the previous day's feast swirls back up the shaft. The moat below isn't just for keeping out invaders, it's an ever-changing stew of rainwater, refuse, and medieval contributions. As you complete your royal duty, you fumble for something to clean up with. If you're fortunate, there's a bundle of moss or a bit of soft linen reserved for the privileged few. Otherwise, it's a gamble, hay, straw, or even the corner of your tunic if you're feeling desperate. Historians still debate whether noble families hoarded soft cloth or if servants smuggled the best bits for themselves. Rumor has it that more than one squire was caught red-handed, accused of pilfering fabric, for entirely unsanctioned purposes. Once finished, you peer down the shaft, hearing the distant splash, or, in dry weather, the less satisfying thud of gravity doing its work. The garderobe isn't only for bodily relief. Clever castle dwellers stash valuables in the alcove, reasoning that no thief would dare rummage where the smell is thickest. Some say this is how the word, wardrobe, was born, a safe for both garments and gold, right beside the drafty seat. Back in the great hall, you hear the servants complaining. Their day begins with emptying chamber pots from those too faint-hearted, or too important, to brave the garderobe, carting sloshing pails through the corridors, down spiral stairs, and out to the kitchen gardens or dung heaps. These morning rituals are equal parts necessity and penance, the price of living within stone walls. Occasionally, a castle's resident, nightman, is tasked with shoveling out the moat or the pits below. It's said they're paid handsomely, but you wonder if there's ever enough coin for that job. Medieval chroniclers argue about the true horror of these tasks. Was it the stench, the danger of rats, or the ever-present threat of falling into the mire? Let's just say, no one aspired to this position. After one last shiver in the damp air, you bolt back to your chamber, rubbing your hands together for warmth. A servant slips past, pinching her nose and muttering about another lost shoe to the moat. You exchange a tired grin, united by a shared hope that someday, someone will invent something better. And as you sit down to a breakfast of porridge and weak ale, you quietly marvel at the ingenuity, and yes, the stubbornness, of your medieval predecessors. The garderobe was progress, even if your nostrils don't always agree. The sun rises somewhere farther south and east, and with it, so do new standards of cleanliness. You find yourself transported to the bustling streets and tranquil courtyards of the Islamic Golden Age, perhaps in medieval Baghdad, Cordoba, or Damascus. Here, the call to prayer mingles with the gentle gurgle of fountains, and the hum of early science fills the air. You stretch out on a woven mat, listening to the distant song of the muezzin, and marvel at how, in this world, the art of going to the bathroom is nothing short of refined. In this culture, water is not just a resource, it's a sacred tool for cleanliness. You rise, pad through an airy house of intricately carved wood and bright tiles, and make your way toward the hammam, the bathhouse, the heart of social life, but also the center of personal hygiene. Within these cool, mosaic-lined walls, toilets are surprisingly modern, squat pans or raised seats made of glazed ceramic, with cleverly angled drains and easy access to running water. You might think you've fast-forwarded 1,000 years, but this is reality for scholars, merchants, and artisans who value both purity and practicality. You settle onto a glazed seat tucked into a small, private alcove. Next to you is a loda, a rounded water vessel, beautifully decorated, always ready for washing. Forget scratchy moss or stale sponges. Here, every visit is followed by a gentle, thorough cleansing with cool, fresh water. The experience is so refreshing, you wonder why the rest of the world ever bothered with anything else. Historians still argue about when the use of water for cleansing first became standard in the region, but there's no doubt that Islamic engineers and physicians elevated it to an art form. Cleanliness is more than comfort, it's a matter of faith. The teachings of the Quran and Hadiths emphasize ritual purity, and you've heard neighbors debate the best ways to achieve it, citing advice from famous doctors like Al-Razi or Ibn Sina. Some whisper about perfumed soap, an innovation from Syria that leaves skin soft and lightly scented. It's not just the body that's cleansed, but the spirit. Every act of washing is a gentle meditation, a break from the world's bustle. Even public restrooms are thoughtfully designed. You pass through leafy courtyards shaded by citrus trees to reach facilities that are clean, tiled, and, by medieval standards, wonderfully private. Artisans take pride in their plumbing. Glazed pipes carry waste away to garden cesspits, and some larger homes are rumored to have flushing systems using gravity and rooftop water tanks. The stories might be exaggerated, but even the skeptical can't help but admire the craftsmanship. You chuckle as you remember the popular tale of a Baghdad sultan who allegedly commissioned a golden toilet just for his favorite poet, though most people agree it was probably just a really shiny chamber pot. Still, the rumor persists, fueled by poets eager for royal favor and a comfortable seat. Afterward, you rinse your hands in rose-scented water, using a brass ewer passed down through generations. No one in this world would dream of skipping this final step. The ritual is soothing, almost musical. The gentle pour of water, the soft patter of droplets on tile, the faint perfume rising in the air. Historians still debate which city truly boasted the finest toilets, and whether the cleanest bathhouse was in Baghdad, Cairo, or Cordoba. The evidence is lost to time, but the legacy is clear. This culture's devotion to hygiene leaves an imprint on the world, one that persists long after the last tiled seat has crumbled. As you step out into the courtyard, the air cool and sweet, you can't help but feel, just for a moment, utterly refreshed, body and soul. And, as you watch neighbors greet each other with bright faces and clean hands, you realize, when it comes to toilets, sometimes the past has already caught up with the future. Now a gentle wind blows east across the islands of Japan. Cherry blossoms drift past paper doors as you wake in a tidy, tatami-matted room. It's the Edo period, a time of samurai, tranquil gardens, and perhaps the most carefully choreographed toilet traditions on the planet. Sunlight filters through rice paper windows, and you hear the clack of wooden Geta sandals as someone walks the garden path. You stretch, bow to the morning, and yes, even in the land of delicate rituals, nature calls. Here, going to the toilet is anything but random. In your home, you slip on wooden slippers designated for the privy, never worn elsewhere, a small but important line between clean and unclean. You pad softly to a wooden structure at the garden's edge, where the benjo, toilet, awaits. It's a simple affair, a polished wooden seat perched over a deep pit, fragrant cedar masking much of the odor. Sliding open the door, you bow, because etiquette extends even to the lavatory. You perch, gaze out at the zen stones and blossoming plum trees, and let the quiet of the moment settle in. Here, the concept of night soil, a polite phrase for the contents of your visit, becomes its own little ecosystem. Each day, local collectors, called night soil men, make their rounds, hauling away the waste in lacquered buckets. They sell it as fertilizer to local farmers, who consider it as precious as gold. Historians still debate whether this recycling system truly kept cities clean or merely moved the problem to the countryside, but there's no denying the efficiency of the loop. No toilet paper yet, at least, not for most folks. Instead, you find a small box of thin wooden sticks, smoothed on one end. These chugi are rinsed and reused, though wealthy families might import soft paper from China, an early luxury for delicate sensibilities. For handwashing, a stone basin of cool, clear water sits just outside. Ritual dictates a thorough wash, no shortcuts allowed. If you cheat, your neighbors will notice, and no one wants to be known as that unclean household. As you exit, slippers stay in the toilet room, never to sully the tatami. Clean hands, clean house, clean spirit. Outside, the night soil collectors pass, ringing their bells. It's a thankless job but surprisingly lucrative. There's even competition for routes. with the best neighborhoods fetching the highest prices. Local legend holds that a savvy night soil man could earn more than a minor samurai, though you're not sure how often that was actually true. On rare occasions, festivals celebrate the humble toilet, folk songs, cheeky poems, and even good luck charms shaped like little buckets. Children giggle at the superstitions. Step into the toilet barefoot, and your feet will never grow. Forget to bow before leaving and you'll lose your wits. Historians still argue whether these customs were meant to encourage hygiene or simply keep kids out of trouble. Back inside, you watch the family gather for breakfast. Rice, pickles, a steaming bowl of miso soup, and of course, clean hands. There's pride here, not just in the meal, but in the discipline that keeps body and home immaculate. As you finish your meal, you catch a whiff of cedar from the garden and think fondly of the day's first visit to the benjo. It's a small moment, but in Japan, even the mundane is made beautiful. The centuries will bring even more change: porcelain thrones, singing bidets, and toilets smarter than most people's first mobile phone. But for now, you take a moment to appreciate the quiet, deliberate rhythm of life, where even a trip to the toilet becomes a meditation on harmony. A brisk breeze and a distant chime bring you west again, to the stately manors and bustling city homes of Victorian England. You awake beneath heavy quilts in a candlelit bedroom, where wallpaper blooms with roses and the clink of carriage wheels echoes from the street below. It's the 19th century, and you're about to navigate the world of chamber pots, water closets, and the unspoken etiquette that rules the morning ritual. You shuffle into your slippers and, careful not to catch your nightgown on the bedpost, look around for the ubiquitous chamber pot, sometimes called the thunder jug. For the working class, it's plain, utilitarian ceramic. For the wealthy, it might be painted porcelain, tucked beneath a frilly skirt or disguised as a stylish piece of furniture. No matter your rank, one fact unites everyone: it is better to use the chamber pot discreetly than risk the cold and dark journey down the hallway to the backyard privy. You perch, nerves tingling. After all, creaky floorboards and thin walls mean your business is never quite private. Etiquette is everything. The correct approach is quick, quiet, and if you're lucky, performed before anyone else wakes up. Historians still debate how many families truly followed the "never let a guest see you carry a pot" rule, or whether the morning parade of chamber pots was just another fact of life. Your mother swears by a sprig of lavender in the bottom, a small but effective touch that keeps the worst smells at bay. For the truly privileged, a housemaid arrives at dawn to whisk away the evidence, one of the least glamorous household duties, often paid with a penny and a grateful nod. In fancier homes, the upstairs corridor holds the latest marvel, the water closet. You slip inside, close the heavy door, and marvel at the new technology. The polished wooden seat is surprisingly comfortable, and a gleaming lever promises a swift and silent flush. The pipes gurgle, and you imagine the waste whisked far away, never to trouble you again. Downstairs, staff empty and scrub chamber pots in a small room off the kitchen, exchanging news and gossip as they work. Some pots are inscribed with witty sayings. "Remember me, use me well," or even the occasional portrait of an unpopular politician. Guests snicker, but everyone understands that good humor is the only way to survive the daily routine. There are rules, of course. Never set a chamber pot in the hall. Always clean and dry after use. Never let the cat near it, one overturned thunder jug, and your day is ruined. Historians still argue whether Victorians were truly obsessed with decorum, or whether they simply didn't want to clean up after the dog. In boarding schools, children face the slop bucket, a shared pot emptied by the unlucky student chosen by lot. The bravest claim they don't mind, the rest secretly hope to escape the task. Out in the countryside, you might trek to the outhouse, a wooden hut with a crescent moon cut in the door, perched over a pit. It's a cold, lonely trip on a rainy night, but at least the stars are bright. After your visit, you wash your hands at the washstand, pouring water from a porcelain pitcher into a matching bowl. A dab of rose-scented soap, a quick pat with a soft towel, and you're ready to greet the day, ever grateful for the unsung labor that keeps the household running smoothly. As breakfast is served, tea, toast, a slice of cold ham, you glance at your neighbors and share a knowing smile. Upstairs, downstairs, chamber pots unite all, and though no one talks about it, everyone knows the unspoken rules of relief. The velvet curtains part, and you're swept into the opulent halls of Versailles, where the question, "Where does a king go?" is both literal and legendary. Here, among gold-leafed mirrors and chandeliers glittering like 1,000 suns, the palace's privy history is as grand, and as peculiar, as everything else in France's royal court. You wake to sunlight painting swirls across silk sheets. A line of servants shuffles quietly through the halls, their arms loaded not with trays of pastries but with the essentials of the royal toilette, perfumed water, fine linen cloths, and of course, the commode. You slip from your bed and into brocaded slippers, tiptoeing through corridors heavy with the scent of roses and intrigue. For Louis XIV and his court, the act of relief is hardly a private affair. Attending the king's toilette is a ceremony. Nobles gather to witness even the most personal rituals, eager for a chance to curry favor. In one corner of the royal suite stands the chaise percée, a padded, velvet-covered armchair with a discreet hole in the seat, beneath which sits a removable porcelain chamber pot. It's as lavish as it sounds, adorned with gold filigree, painted scenes of shepherds and cupids, and occasionally inscribed with a witty phrase to amuse the king during his moments of contemplation. You take your place, purely hypothetically of course, you're more court jester than king in this fantasy, and reflect on the absurdity of a palace with over 2,000 rooms and almost no real bathrooms. Palace etiquette dictates that anyone, king, courtier, or guest, might use the nearest commode or even, in desperate moments, a quiet corner behind a curtain. Historians still debate how frequently the famous "let them eat cake" crowd resorted to chamber pots in hallways, alcoves, or gardens, but the lingering tales are too delicious to dismiss. The staff, valets, maids, and a surprisingly large number of specialized scavengers are responsible for collecting, emptying, and scrubbing the commodes daily. The job is considered an honor if you serve the king directly, less so if your charges are visiting noblemen with questionable diets. The contents are whisked away through secret passageways or out garden doors to be dumped into the great sewer beyond the palace walls. It's said the royal gardens owe their lushness to this system, though some prefer not to think about the details while strolling the manicured paths. Of course, the truly fashionable favor the private cabinet d'essence, a little closet tucked behind mirrored panels, gilded wallpaper, painted ceilings, and a thick rug ensure even the briefest visit is fit for royalty. It's not unusual to hold court from the commode, signing documents, listening to petitions, or gossiping with a favorite duke, all while pretending this is entirely normal. Historians still argue whether these stories are exaggerations or if French aristocracy really took multitasking to a new level. As the sun climbs higher, you pass a pair of noblewomen whispering in the corridor, a chambermaid carrying a scented pot, and a gardener with a heavy cart and a determined look. You share a conspiratorial smile. After all, in Versailles, everyone knows the real throne sometimes comes with cushions. You finish your royal visit, wash your hands in rose water, and rejoin the swirl of music and diplomacy. The day marches on, the court bows and curtsies, and somewhere, behind yet another velvet curtain, another secret commode awaits its next royal guest. You open your eyes to the chirp of crickets and the rustle of wind through the prairie grass. It's a new dawn in early America, where the humble outhouse reigns supreme. Whether you're on a rambling New England farm, a Missouri homestead, or a miner's camp in California, everyone knows the little wooden structure at the edge of the property is where daily relief and occasional drama unfold. It's chilly before sunrise, and the dewy ground sparkles as you tiptoe, boots squeaking, down a narrow dirt path. The outhouse waits, a weather-beaten shed of gray planks, a crescent moon cut into the door for ladies, at least according to legend, though historians still argue if this symbol ever really meant anything. Inside, it's simple, a wooden bench with a couple of round holes, sometimes lined with old newspapers or a bit of rough burlap for comfort. No porcelain, no plush, but plenty of country charm. You perch and survey your domain, spiders spinning webs in the corners, the chill breeze sneaking through knotholes. There's a can of ashes handy, sprinkled now and then to keep the smells in check. Next to you, in a basket, lies the infamous corncob, America's surprisingly effective answer to toilet paper before catalogs, then actual rolls, took over. Family stories say the softest cobs went to Grandpa, and heaven help you if you took his favorite. There's usually a battered Sears and Roebuck catalog nearby, and you eye it with a mix of gratitude and mischief. Historians still debate which came first, the catalogs used for shopping or, well, for other business. Outhouses are not just functional, they're competitive. County fairs occasionally host Best Outhouse contests, with prizes for pink jobs, flower boxes, or creative decorations. Some proud owners even build double-deckers or install windows for a room with a view. Others go for function over flair, digging extra deep pits and lining them with stone to fend off wandering wildlife or accidental collapses. Every family has its outhouse stories. The time a raccoon startled Cousin Sally, the frozen seat in February, or the mysterious disappearance of the toilet paper. Kids are known to tip over the neighbor's privy as a Halloween prank, and everyone dreads the spring pit cleaning. Some outhouses come with charms, horseshoes for luck, wind chimes for good spirits, and occasionally a carved sign warning, "Beware of splinters." As the sun climbs, you finish your visit, step out into the golden light, and breathe in the scent of wildflowers, grateful, if only for a moment, for the privacy and peace of a solitary morning in the countryside. You drop a handful of lime down the hole, wave to your neighbor on his way to his own temple, and head back inside, coffee mug warming your hands. Historians still argue about the true origins of the outhouse's crescent moon and the real reason some pits were built dangerously close to wells. But for now, you're just glad for the chance to enjoy the gentle routine, and maybe, just maybe, to appreciate the quiet charm of America's most unpretentious throne. Suddenly, it's the clang and bustle of late 19th century cities, London, Paris, New York, where the scent of soot and horse-drawn carriages lingers in the air and a revolution is quietly happening beneath your feet. Modern plumbing is on the march, bringing with it a world of pipes, pumps, and, at last, the much-hyped water closet. You start your day in a row house with gaslight flickering in the hallway. You shuffle to the back, where a modest room waits, not a fancy salon, but a genuine indoor toilet. The WC is the talk of the town. Your neighbors marvel at the porcelain bowl, the polished wooden seat, and, most astonishingly, the chain-pull flush. A gentle tug, a rush of water, and the evidence of last night's dinner disappears as if by magic. You can't help but grin. Even after the 100th flush, it feels like a party trick. It's not just homes that benefit. Public water closets pop up on city streets, sometimes hidden behind ironwork screens or tucked in underground passages. There's a coin slot on the door, and for a penny you get a clean, private stall and a fresh towel, though the towels aren't always as fresh as advertised. For the first time, city dwellers can relieve themselves without risking the nearest alley or a dirty chamber pot. Historians still debate whether the invention of paid toilets was an act of public service or a clever way to profit from nature's call. In England, a plumber named Thomas Crapper becomes a household name, his company perfecting the siphon flush and promoting a new era of cleanliness. Soon, to spend a penny is slang for using the loo, and indoor plumbing spreads faster than gossip after a garden party. Engineers pore over sewer maps, plotting ever more elaborate networks of tunnels to ferry waste beneath city streets, out of sight and ideally out of smell. But this transition is far from seamless. In older buildings, pipes freeze in winter and burst with a vengeance. Early adopters sometimes discover, to their horror, that their pipes connect to the wrong sewer, resulting in unexpected and unwelcome returns. Architects compete to design the most elegant lavatories, marble walls, gold-plated fixtures, and even little vases of flowers for that final touch of luxury. The humble outhouse doesn't vanish overnight. In poorer neighborhoods and rural areas, the old ways persist, a reminder that change is slow, and the history of toilets is, if nothing else, one of patience and improvisation. Still, the water closet is here to stay, and you relish the thought that, at last, privacy, comfort, and cleanliness are within reach for almost everyone. Historians still debate whether this age of innovation truly solved urban sanitation or merely shifted the problem further downstream. City officials boast about cleaner streets, while river keepers warn of trouble brewing beneath the surface. For the average person, though, the chance to flush and forget is nothing short of a miracle. As you wash your hands with newfangled, sanitary soap, and return to the bustle of the city, you can't help but wonder what marvels and mishaps await the next chapter in the ever-evolving story of the humble toilet. Now the story shifts to a surprisingly delicate subject: what happens after the act itself? For most of human history, the quest for cleanliness was as inventive, and sometimes as desperate, as the quest for comfort. Tonight you're on a journey through the quirky history of toilet paper, and all the things people used before the humble roll became a household hero. You rise from your porcelain seat in a 1920s city flat, reach for a soft, snowy white square, and give thanks for modern luxuries. But rewind the centuries, and things were far less, well, absorbent. You're suddenly a Roman citizen again, eyeing the communal sponge on a stick, rinsed in vinegar and shared among the bathhouse crowd. You shudder. Some things truly are best left to history. Historians still debate whether the vinegar was enough to keep everyone healthy, or if the communal sponge was responsible for more than its share of unpleasant surprises. In ancient China, as you learned before, there's a basket of bamboo sticks, cho, gently reused after each visit. The elite, by the Tang dynasty, might boast soft paper squares, carefully cut and scented, though peasants still rely on water, leaves, or whatever's handy. One imperial document supposedly records the delivery of 720,000 sheets of toilet paper to the palace, enough for a year's worth of royal comfort, but still a rare treat outside the court. Travel to medieval Europe and you'll reach for a bit of hay, a handful of moss, or perhaps a linen scrap if you're very lucky. French kings are rumored to have used lace or perfumed cloth. The rest make do with what the countryside provides. Historians still argue whether old manuscripts were ever recycled for less literary ends, an ignoble fate for forgotten poetry. Across the Atlantic, American settlers kept a cornfield near the outhouse, grateful for the softest cobs after harvest. Later, the arrival of mail-order catalogs revolutionized the rural bathroom. Sears and Roebuck, Eaton's, and Montgomery Ward became as useful for wiping as for shopping. There's a running joke that the most popular pages were the ones with the least ink. Families sometimes squabble over who gets the last page, and you smile at the resourcefulness of generations past. By the mid-19th century, a New York inventor named Joseph Gaiety produces the first commercial toilet paper in America, advertising it as medicated paper for the water closet. It's sold in flat sheets, coated with soothing aloe, and marketed as a solution to all manner of digestive complaints. Uptake is slow at first. Many people are skeptical about spending money on something so disposable. Then, with the rise of indoor plumbing and delicate pipes, the roll is born. Scott Paper Company leads the way, manufacturing long sheets wound around a cardboard core. Early ads assure consumers the product is splinter-free, a real concern at the time. You pause, imagining the trial and error involved before perfection was reached. In Japan, soft paper squares become the standard, replacing the old wooden sticks, and by the 20th century, manufacturers worldwide compete to offer the gentlest, strongest, most luxurious wipes possible. Companies launch quilted triple ply, and even moist versions, all in the name of personal comfort. Historians still debate which culture invented the first truly disposable paper, but the battle for bathroom supremacy shows no signs of slowing. You finish up, flush, and marvel at the miracle of the modern roll, a small, humble invention that has traveled so far, changed so much, and still manages to spark passionate debates at dinner tables and on late-night talk shows. The world around you shifts once more. Tile floors hum, soft music plays from hidden speakers, and warm light glows beneath a spotless seat. It's the present day, and you've landed in the future of toilets, a realm of comfort, automation, and more technology than most people keep in their pockets. You blink, and the lid opens by itself, a gentle welcome from the smartest seat in the house. In Japan, you slip into the restroom of a bustling Tokyo apartment, and the washlet awaits. Heated seat, built-in bidet, air dryer, even a button for background flushing sounds to spare your dignity. You press a panel, and blue lights illuminate controls with more settings than your television. If you're feeling fancy, you can connect to the toilet via Bluetooth, queuing up your favorite playlist or tracking your daily stats, though historians still debate whether anyone ever checks them twice. The seat warms, a soft mist sprays, and warm air dries you off. No paper, no fuss. The lid closes itself as you stand, and an automatic flush whisks everything away. There's even a deodorizer, working overtime to keep the air fresh for the next visitor. You marvel at how far the world has come from Neolithic pits and communal sponges. Even in the West, smart toilets are making inroads, voice-activated, self-cleaning, and often so discreet you forget they're even there. In luxury hotels, the experience rivals a spa a day. Essential oil diffusers, LED lighting, even ambient noise, babbling brooks, bird song, a gentle rainstorm. Some models analyze your health, offering feedback no doctor ever dreamed of. Drink more water. Or, congratulations on a perfect visit. You chuckle, wondering what your Neolithic ancestors would think of a toilet that talks back. Meanwhile, environmental engineers are working on toilets that use less water, convert waste to energy, or even compost automatically for city gardens. The world's poorest regions see innovations too: affordable composting latrines, solar-powered flushes, and community projects designed to give everyone a safe place to go. Historians still argue whether the greatest revolution is comfort or access, but either way, the journey continues. You step away, hands washed with touchless soap and water, and return to the world feeling fresh, cared for, and, if only for a moment, part of a grand experiment in comfort and civilization. And as the lights dim, a gentle hush falls. The story of toilets, of human ingenuity and, yes, humility, continues, always seeking cleaner, kinder ways to answer the oldest call of all. Wind down, 300 words. The world outside your window is silent now, shadows soft across the floor. You close your eyes, letting the slow arc of history drift around you like a gentle tide. From firelit Neolithic pits to golden chamber pots beneath painted ceilings, from moonlit outhouses on the prairie to the humming warmth of a modern smart toilet, the humble act of relief has shaped empires and bound generations together in quiet, shared necessity. You imagine yourself wandering those ancient paths, bare feet in dew, linen tunic rustling in the Nile breeze, sandalwood incense curling in a Tang Dynasty room. You see the flicker of a lamp on a medieval stone wall, hear the murmur of voices in a Roman bathhouse, the distant clang of a gardener's cart in Versailles. All those lives, all those mornings and midnights, strung together by something so ordinary and yet so essential. You feel the quiet pride of invention, the laughter of a child racing to the outhouse, the serene hush of a night soil man on his rounds. All through the centuries, people found comfort in little routines: the sprinkle of ashes, the smoothness of porcelain, the swirl of a flush echoing into the dark. Now, as your own world grows still, you let the gentle rhythm of history lull you toward sleep. You breathe deep, safe and at ease, knowing that for all our differences, some things unite us all. The past slips away like water down a drain, and you surrender to the soft peace of night.